My name is V, and you're listening to the V's Hot Podcast. This is the first in a series of episodes aimed at discussing hot financial topics. I encourage you to get involved and leave your opinion because your comments will be addressed in the next episodes. Also, please write next to your opinion if you want your nickname to be mentioned or if you want your opinion to be discussed anonymously. So, welcome. Today we are talking about the no longer crazy idea of the US dollar being backed by Bitcoin. Seriously, this is happening while the public is busy watching the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and now between Israel and Palestine. The United States is beginning to understand that the previous strategy of smashing out competition that threatens the dollar is no longer working, and now politicians are beginning to speak publicly about it. When approximately 4 months ago, Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced that if elected, he would back the US dollar by Bitcoin, no one took it too seriously. First of all, because usually candidates who do not have a great chance of winning make bold and spectacular plans in order to attract the attention and votes of a certain group. But, as you know, in the end, nothing comes of it. Second, at the time RFK Jr. said this, crypto was completely uninteresting to retail investors, so most of them didn't follow the news, and therefore didn't even hear about this. However, now Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has announced the same, and that tells us something else. The dollar has been the world's reserve currency since the Second World War, and is estimated to have been used in more than 80% of international trade. The United States used that position for political purposes, which always resulted in great poverty in the sanctioned countries, but no one from the rest of the world has the power to change that. Calls for countries to move away from the dominance of the dollar is not a new idea, but due to recent geopolitical changes and growing tensions between the United States and other giant countries, BRICS has turned those calls into action. The fact that the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates in recent years has resulted in developing countries wildly suffering from paying higher interest on their dollar-denominated debt, and this has resulted in BRICS gaining more and more support around the world. Not for moral reasons, but because the real unsustainability of the current situation. That is also an indication that the US is no longer as strong as it once was. So it seems that this move away from the dollar in international trade is no longer the empty word. While BRICS has its own challenges, how are they going to create an alternative to the dollar? Are they going to create a common currency? How are they going to convert between domestic currencies in which trade is done? Are they going to create a basket currency backed by gold, etc.? Whatever happens, the dollar is in any case losing dominance and value. And what kind of problem is this? That is not a problem that does not have a profound impact on the lives of the citizens of the United States. No. That's a problem that is taking a serious toll on the financial well-being of Americans. As you know, when everyone has money and lives their lives more or less financially carefree, news like this is just news. You watch it, wave your hand, and go on living your life. When you're struggling to buy a home or pay rent, that's when you start paying more attention to the news. But when you start struggling to pay for electricity and groceries, then you start going out to the streets to protest. But when you can no longer put food on the table, then you are ready for anything. Yup, that's a historical fact. When poverty comes in the door, great divisions and civil wars begin. No sane politician will talk about this publicly so as not to cause panic, but they will talk in twisted form about the way to solve the problem. No matter what position RFK Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy will have in this 2024 presidential race. I mean, it's totally irrelevant who will win. Whether it's Biden or anyone else, the problem of the dollarization is on the head of each of them. As I said before, it's clear that military, legal, and economic interventions in an attempt to stifle any potential competitor to the dollar are not working, and therefore other things are now on the table. The first step in the fight for the dollar is to restore confidence in it. One option is to go back to the gold standard, but that is not attractive to anyone in the form it was before it was abolished. Bitcoin, in that role, was the main topic in the conversation that took place while waiting for the elevators in the political institutions, and now it started to come out in public as a serious solution to the problem. RFK Jr. plans to gradually back the US dollar with Bitcoin. He plans to start it with 1% of issued T-bills being backed by hard currency, by gold, silver, platinum, or Bitcoin. So he's talking about a long-term strategy that would include commodities other than Bitcoin to give Bitcoin time to mature. He also plans to make Bitcoin profits exempt from capital gains taxes. In his plan, that allocation of 1% would increase annually. He points out that in the future, in which the absolute scarcity of Bitcoin and sound money principles will reinforce the US dollar's eroding position as the world reserve currency, he emphasizes that it is necessary to stop the uncontrolled printing of money to finance wars and projects that aim to secure political points, not the welfare of citizens, after which citizens are taxed through a hidden inflation tax. Similarly, Vivek Ramaswamy appears to be planning to gradually introduce Bitcoin. He believes that the current strategy of destroying competitors that threaten the dollar is an indication that the government does not believe in its product and is trying to maintain the dollar's position by force, which is not sustainable. He thinks the introduction of Bitcoin would hold the dollar's feet to the fire. Those are his words. In the sense that it could no longer be manipulated to force people to abandon it and go the other way. He thinks that the mere existence of another option will force the government to be more cautious and, above all, prevent it from printing what he calls artificial snow, as the Federal Reserve is currently doing. He says Bitcoin, quote, is the law, and the fixed supply is the real thing on which the building of the future will rest. On November 16, at the North America Blockchain Summit in Texas, he introduced a proposal called the 3 Freedoms of Crypto, which elaborates on regulation and in general talks about what seemed so far away only 4 years ago, the introduction of crypto in the financial system, but not as an accessory, but as an alternative that will correct the mistakes of the current corrupt system. You know, when we listen to the crypto bros, those people who got rich by getting into it early and now they are lobbying in every possible way to protect the source of their wealth, giving proposals like this, it's one thing. But when we see that Bitcoin is seen as a solid solution to a pressing problem, that's something else entirely. It's clear that Bitcoin's entry into the traditional system, once again, not as a toy for making profit, but as some kind of controller or parameter by which the issuance of dollars will be guided, represents a direct threat to banks, funds, and in general those who benefit from the current as-is system. So the resistance to this will be serious. As I said, this is a hot topic discussion that I encourage you to participate in, and your opinion will be discussed in the future episodes. Do you think Bitcoin will manage to enter the financial system in this way? Do you think other politicians will start supporting this? What problems do you foresee in achieving this? Write whatever you think. I'm sure both RFK Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy would like to hear your reaction to their proposals. This is the Viz Hot Podcast. Thanks for listening.